Hello everyone, this is Dunedain, and today we're going to take a look at the hybrid classes, and more specifically we're going to take a look at how they were implemented in Vanilla WoW and how I think they were supposed to be some kind of support role rather than a specific role. But before we are doing that, I first want to give a big shout out to Meldrin and DevCamp because of their never-ending support to my channel. They're really great guys, I like their content. I think it's a blessing for the classic community to have guys like that. Go check them out if you didn't do that yet. Okay, so now to the topic of the day, so the hybrid classes. And I want to talk specifically about Paladin, the Druid and the Shaman. For what I can see, I think they were originally planned to be some kind of fourth role, like a support role. I know they can do the three roles, but most of the time they're in vanilla anyway, assigned to be healers, and I don't think that was the original intent for them. You can see it in the way they implemented or in the way they made the first tier sets, the first gear for the classes, and in the way they designed the classes overall. So I would like to take a look to all three of them, and because I know most of Paladin, I will start with Paladin. So basically, if you are playing a Paladin in Vanilla WoW, you are playing a healer in raids most of the time. I know there are some exceptions, but the gearing is supposed, or well, not the gearing even, but the class is supposed to be healing, it seems, and I kind of have to disagree with that, especially if you go to the first build of Paladin, so before the talent revamp and before the balance changes. Paladin set only 5-minute buffs, just something interesting to think about. Most people think that was a bad thing, but I think it's actually a design philosophy in them, and making the buffs 5 minutes means you will actually be buffing a lot in the raid, and it will be a main support role, something no other, or maybe Shaman does, but no other alliance race, alliance class anyway, is doing. So it's not a real healing role, it's more a kind of support, but I will go more in depth later. It's something we also took for granted later on. The newer expansions, actually since the Burning Crusade, every class has three or four even specific talent trees, and if you spec even in the Burning Crusade into Holy, you are a Holy Paladin. So you basically have three different classes. You have Holy, Protection, and Retribution Paladin, and they are entirely different in some way, at least, especially from the Mists of Pandaria, when the talents changed and you actually had to choose one spec. Classes, well, let me put it this way: if you play the Holy Paladin, you played an entirely different class than if you played Retribution Paladin. So Holy Paladin and, for example, Fury Warrior are almost as different as Holy Paladin and Retribution Warrior, Paladin, of course. But the point I'm trying to make is that in vanilla, you can mix and match your talents, and you can make different kind of builds. But even if you go 31 into 1-3, you're still a Paladin, and you still have the same toolkit, and that's true for the Burning Crusade, it's true for Wrath of the Lich King, but later on it kind of changes a little bit. It's still true for Cataclysm, but later on anyway. And what that does is that you're playing the same basic class, but you specialize into one specific role, and that means you can still deal damage, you can still tank, but if you are spec'd into Holy, your main focus, or the thing you're specialized in, is healing, which doesn't mean you can't do the others. It just means you're better healing than damage dealing. And that's something that changed. I think it changed in vanilla already. Basically from Naxx on, it was already changed, because in next you have the tier 3 set, which is totally designed for Holy. The talents are revamped, and if you pick Holy, you're a Holy Paladin. So it was in vanilla already, they changed the philosophy, I feel. But I think before that, and that's one of the reasons I would like to go to the old talents, as you know, but before that I feel like whatever spec you took, you can still do all 3 or 2, maybe not tanking, but at least all 2 roles in a raid. For example, in the first guild I played, there were 5 spots for paladins, and I'm pretty sure that, although they were probably bad players, but I'm pretty sure that not all 5 were healing, and I think there might be 1 or 2 which were spec holy and they were healing, and then you had the others, and what they were doing was they were buffing, they were supporting, really. So it's an entirely different role. Let's say there was a Retribution Paladin, and what he was doing, he was buffing like the others, because it were 5-minute buffs, it was a huge task. He was dealing some damage, not a lot, but he was specialized into red, so he could deal a little bit more damage than the protection or the holy spec. And whenever needed, he could still help healing with certain fights. And he also, while damage dealing, he was also supporting by putting seals onto the target. So that support is really something unique to the Shaman and the Paladin, in my opinion. So it's really a 4th role, really. And then you had the Holy Paladin. He was more specialized into healing, but if necessary, he could still put on that shield, took a little hit here and there, maybe not in raids, but still. He could also put that same or different seals onto the target, so the raid could take some mana back or some healing. So he was basically not that different from the Retribution, because they were both doing the same support role, but whenever they had time, the first one was dealing a little bit more damage and the second one was healing a little bit, and both were not primary healers or damage dealers, because you have the priest for that and you have the DPS classes for that. They were support, and no one really cared at that point. The game was new, people were still bad players, but I like that that idea. And why I think the design philosophy was support rather than specific specialization has to do with the gearing as well. If you look at the original tier sets, if you have tier 1, you have some mishmash of stats, you have intellect, you have some spirit, some stamina, some strength, some agility even, a bunch of different resistances, and then you have a chance, you have improved hit chance, improved block chance with shield, improved healing done with spells, improved crits with spells, improved dodge. You have a lot of different things, and also the set bonuses, they are really hybrid as well. You have plus attack power, you have lower cost for the blessings, and you have some bonus for damage as well, lowering the holy resistance, for example, or dealing holy damage to the target whenever you make a crit, or reducing the cost of your seals. That's something from tier 2 even. So if you look at the armor, a lot of people say Blizzard did not really know what they were doing with the itemization of the sets. I'm not sure I believe that. In my opinion, they made the set exactly as I would like it to be, because these sets of those sets, they are pretty much suited for that support role. You can do a little bit of everything. You can't do everything as good, but you can do everything, and you can specialize a little bit into something, but your set will help you in whatever way you will specialize. You will never be the best one, but your main role is support. And I think that support role never really remained since the patches with the talents and the balance, and in the further expansions it got totally lost. But I think in the beginning of vanilla there was a 4th role which I would describe as support, and I like that. I really like that, and it's one of the reasons I would like to play a paladin. I want to try that support role. I want to try to be maybe protection, maybe holy, maybe retribution, I don't know yet, but be the support class. I like that idea. And then from next, really from tier 3, they really specialized the tier sets for healing, and I think that was the point in which they decided this support role, we're not going to do that, we will just make it healers in raids for this expansion. And then in the Burning Crusade they gave every specialization some decent tier sets at least. So is that a good change? Is it a bad change? I'm not sure. I like the support. I hope they bring it back one day, but I also, because I want to try this support in vanilla, but I'm not quite sure if people will accept it, because for the most part it was never there, and people really think paladins are supposed to be healers, and maybe they are right in some way because you can gear them as healers, but if you look at it, I more or less get the feeling they were supposed to be something in between. But because it never was re-implemented later, I think people don't really see the opportunity you have with paladins and shamans and druids to do that kind of fourth role. So I will have a brief look to druids and shamans as well. I have said almost everything for paladins, but I think most is true for the 3, and maybe for shaman it's the closest to paladin, because it's just the horde counterpart, and instead of buffing you're managing your totems. Also shaman obviously can not tank, or at least not as good as a paladin. In the early talents there were some hints to tanking, so I think first design philosophy of the shaman, they were supposed to be some kind of tanky if someone decided they wanted to go that route. But if you look to the early tier sets of shaman, again they have some mix of stats. They have intellect, spirit, stamina, strength, agility, all 5. They have increased healing, increased frost damage, increased fire damage, increased nature damage. So they have something for each pack. Again, I have the feeling the set is supposed to help the class and not a specific specialization. They have different set bonuses, same as a paladin for all different kind of specializations. Then the druid is a little bit different. It's already more specialized into one different role, and therefore it's a little less of a support and more of a primary healer. But the tier sets are still having all the different kind of stats, so they still have agility, they still have spirit, intellect, all the 5 different stats. They also have things to improve their arcane damage, things to improve their healing, things to improve nature damage, and also their bonuses are targeted to the different specializations again. So again, it's not focusing on one spec, and therefore I see it more as support, but it's more in between the priest and the other 2. One other example I could give about the druid is that the way you specialize, it does affect your healing, but it doesn't affect it that much. There are plenty of restoration druids who are actually not really deep restoration, and they take few talents in restoration and they take the others in either balance or feral, and their healing output doesn't really differ that much. So I kind of like that design philosophy as well. It gives you the opportunity to do different roles in the same raid. Now again, if people don't see where you're coming from. If people don't understand, you're there to help them in certain situations and take a different role for a different situation, you will probably not get the right spot. Okay, so one last point before I end this video is whether or not the support role is actually working. And I think you can say now, if we see the private servers, there's no one playing support, but of course they have the 1.12 talents and the 1.12 balance, so it's a little bit different. But again, I think we can have a vanilla WoW starting from 1.1 with no one playing support. I think people will try to specialize into one role, so you can argue, is this design philosophy, is this working, or will people find ways around it? Now, I think it's an interesting design philosophy, and I think there are ways to make it work. For example, the 5-minute buffs is a way to make it work. People will probably not like it, but some people do. I do. I know others who really like it. I've heard Nixium commenting about it in some video that he would like to be a buff bot. So there are definitely other people who like that kind of play style. But can Blizzard do something to make that fourth role happen without people going around? I think they can, but in order to do that, they would probably have to redesign some parts, and I would definitely not like that. So I would like to have the things as they were from day one till the last day of Vanilla WoW. If they ever going to make it a new MMO, of course they can think about it, and then they can do it the right way from the beginning. I think it's an interesting idea. I hope it will come back someday. So that's about all I have to say about this topic. Please let me know in the comments what you think of it. I hope I made my point clear, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Have a nice day.